What's up, guys and gals? It's your host with the most, Griever, as always, and it's time for episode 12 of Ragnarok, season 2222. The second part, the final part. I still don't know why they split it up. It's almost like I was just sitting here complaining about that. Yeah. Anyways, episode 12 entitled Zero. So far, my favorite episode of the newer part, because I think, barring a couple little nitpicks, and I felt like they could have expanded slightly, just slightly, on Zero Fuku's backstory, or Zero at the time. Once again, I hope that the anime, because the anime seems to do good things for the most part for the fan base. For example, I have a new appreciation. Just by switching around a few scenes, round 5 is far, far better than it was in the manga. As a result of the anime, and I have a new appreciation for both Shiva, Raiden, and round 5 as a whole, right? So, once again, I'm hoping that this, because I thought it was done fine in the manga the first time. In my opinion, it's if Jack the Ripper didn't exist, Zero has the best backstory. 100%. Zero Fuku's backstory is three-dimensional, well-written, and this episode is all about it. And I thought it was done absolutely fine. The voice acting, once again, by Zero Fuku's English dub actor, is done great. Buddha's done well. There is a slight problem that they didn't seem to fix, though. There is a slight problem. Now, maybe it's just semantics, so forgive me if that's all it is. There is an issue with the backstory, specifically, and this episode doesn't correct the manga's problem with it as well. And we're already making a cut, so you guys probably have already seen the length of this review. It's about as long as the actual episode. And is it all about episode 12? No. That's why we're making the cut right here at the beginning, just to let you guys know that the majority of this is discussing one of my favorite backstories in the form of Zero. So, and the misrepresentation, or the fact that it went over a lot of people's heads when the manga first came out. So I really dig in my heels, and I go 110% on detailing exactly step by step how Zero got to where he is, and what caused it, and why he's well written as a result, and why it makes sense and stuff like that. So just so you guys know, this could really be titled, and I'll probably title it the Zero Rant episode review. I do go into the episode, here and there, but for the most part, this is talking, because the majority of this episode, or the first half, is all about the Zero Fuku backstory, how he got to the way he is, how he became 7 Lucky Gods, etc., and why he's reverted back to this state here in round 6. So we go into that, and I discuss basically at length for 20 odd minutes of this review all about Zero. So it could have almost been a Zero discussion video in its own right, but I found the opportunity. I like what I'm saying, and I like how much I'm hammering home and repeating myself 5 or 6, 7 times to really make sure you guys heard me the first time in this video. So just fair warning before you watch the rest, it's very Zero-centric. Back to the video. It's almost like they didn't write Buddha's backstory before writing Zero's, because they keep referring to Buddha as simply a human at this point in Zero's backstory. At this point, he was a god. So, or at the very least, if he wasn't a god yet, he was still an enlightened human. He was still the honored one, and reached nirvana on Earth at the time that he was walking with the tigers and the people, and met up with a very broken Zero. So referring to him as simply a human constantly is odd. I always found that odd. It's like, no, and that's why I also sort of blame Buddha for how Zero turned out, because at this point, we know for a fact at this point, at the very least, even if you want to argue the semantics that he technically wasn't a god yet, we know for a fact he achieved nirvana at this point, right? There's just no doubt. Look at his attire, look at what he's doing, it lines up with his backstory, right? Which we'll get to later, I'm sure, in the next episode. So, I liked... The thing is, this is where I blame Buddha for partially for Zero. Because here's the deal. Is that, once again, if nobody understands Zero, I should really make like a Nux Taku video. No one understands Zero Fuku, because I feel like nobody does. I don't get why people don't like Zero. Zero is actually is this very tragic character. That's the deal. He's probably the most tragic character in the series because unlike the other gods, which we've seen in previous backstories, are either battle hungry, are assholes, don't care about humans, this poor child of a god cared so much about just helping. It's literally the god of fortune and just wanted to help living things. Just wanted, remember the bird he helped him, blah blah blah. He took joy and just and his soul was basically, he's already an enlightened individual by just trying to help them. Now granted, here's the thing. He is, once again, a child. So he's got a very black and white version of how to achieve. He's not this wizened old Yoda type level intellect and wisdom. He didn't reach nirvana like Buddha did, which we'll get into that when that episode happens, because but regardless, Buddha's still cool, but the way he got nirvana was dumb. But regardless, Zero is this very tragic character because he's got this childlike innocence and naivety. That doesn't make him a bad written character. That makes him a good character. He's a very good character because he does the obvious thing like a child would. He goes up there, he's the child of fortune, he's trying to help. Look at all these people. He went to a war-torn, disease-ridden village where nobody had money, clothes, food, good drinking water, nothing. And they're all dying of tuberculosis and heart attacks and friggin' strokes and all this craziness and all these diseases, and he goes up there and starts healing them, right? He goes up and stuff like that. And the big problem I have with the way the episode and the manga handle this is when it first shows it and when Buddha reprimands him in a way for it, I completely argue against this, because when Zero first got there and was just completely like, what the hell? It was a terrible situation, and he has the power to help. Most mangas and animes and fiction and everything will show you that the whole give the shirt off your back to help someone who's freezing, if you don't need it. He literally was giving of himself to save literal children from dying of disease. You tell me that Buddha's going to let that same child that he healed and took away the disease so the kid could actually get out of bed and walk, who was dying of pneumonia or whatever, or malnutrition, whatever he was dying from, you telling me Buddha wouldn't have tried to help him? Once again, my point is not what Zero did, but what he was attempting to do. And people seem to miss that overarching point, is that Zero took away a child's pain. Period. Nobody can argue with that sentence. That's a good thing to do. That's not a wrong thing to do. And the fact is, we don't see Zero doing it again and again and again with all these other people. Our only instance of seeing him do this is to literally heal a child who can't get out of bed. Then we're told that he takes that misery into himself, that pain, the agony. And then we just basically flash forward, like we do in the manga, showcasing that he did that for everyone in the village, everybody in the town, to try to make them happy. He's trying to make them happy, but he's literally saving dying people, okay? So what he's doing is no different from a doctor with healing hands, like with the magic of healing. He's got magical, priest-like healing, and he's doing that. Then all of a sudden we jump to it, he's taken all their misery, he's taken all their misfortune. We don't see where the tipping point was, where he started to screw up. Like this guy was lazy and didn't want to work or something like that, and he's like, oh shucks, I'm down on my luck. Here, I'll take care of that problem. Wow, gold and stuff like that, and going about it the wrong way. We don't see the divide. And therein lies the problem with the manga and the anime, and this episode once again did not showcase that, and I think that's what people are missing, is that when we left Zero, he was healing dying children. And when we got to the point where he was completely broken and all screwed up, and in total agony, who could barely walk, we don't see until that point. And he's like, I've taken all their misfortune. And he's gone around all these places where he's taken the misfortune. He's healed people. He's taken the agony inside of himself. and his soul, he's still a good person at this point because he's in total excruciating pain. However, he still feels he's still able to smile because he's helped humanity. He's literally selfless in that regard. But selflessness has a limit, has a breaking point, like everything. How many times do you hold out your hand, and if it keeps getting bitten, you're going to stop holding your hand out to help, right? If you keep getting a door slammed in your face, you're not going to keep knocking anymore, right? There comes a point. Even the Mother Teresa, Gandhi level people of the world, there comes a tipping point, a breaking point for all that, holier than thou shit. And Zero reached that point. And we don't get to see that point, and that's the problem. Because when he comes back, where he's completely broken and shattered and he's healed everybody, everyone's rich and smoking and sex and drugs and rock and roll and stuff. Whoa, wait a minute, what happened here? All he did, from what we understood, was literally keep people from dying and starving to death, dying of disease. Next we come back and everybody's rich and famous, and riding on camels. What happened? What happened in the interlude there? When did Zero start, giving mafia bosses money? Well, when did he start making mobsters and sex addicts and prostitutes? When did that start? When did that happen? So we missed that transition. And then we have the balls at the end of that to have Buddha walk through the guy he healed, the first kid he healed, which once again was not a wrong thing to do. I fight anybody on that argument. He literally healed a dying kid. The kid grows up and becomes an asshole. Okay, fine, Danny, that's horrible. So we should feel empathy and sympathy at this point for Zero. And the only one who recognizes him is that little bird at the beginning who saved him, and he tries to go forth to comfort him. I wonder what would have happened had just that bird reached Zero in time. I think maybe that would have been the turning point. So it's very unfortunate that Zero at this point thinks he's helped nobody, made nobody happy. Only a bird without the human sensibilities. And Brunhilde's overarching, I forget if this is in the manga, but her little speech or her narration as she's going over Zero's backstory is fantastic. It's like, but Zero didn't understand the true, what was it? The true concept of man? No, of humankind. The true essence or something like that, or how they truly are. And look, they're greedy, they're selfish. Once again, that's why the 7 deadly sin balls are on his thing, because he saw it. He made them in a position to become happy, and all they did was go to the negative side. They went to all the 7 deadly sins of living because humanity sucks. Basically, they're saying Zero came down. He tried to save human suffering, and humans are such a terrible species that they decided to, instead of being happy, they decided to go towards their own destruction. And somehow we're blaming Zero for that. I don't get it. I don't get why the community doesn't like Zero and understand what a great character Zero actually is. He's got this childlike naivety, goes to this place, does all this shit, and then to just add insult on injury, Buddha walks through with a bunch of happy homeless people. And a tiger. Walks through, they're all clearly malnutrition, half starving, somehow Buddha's fit as a fiddle, and they're just like, yeah, and so Zero just goes up and just goes, why and stuff. And once again, Buddha with his enlightenment at this point should have ran after Zero, should have sat with Zero, should have done something with Zero. I blame Buddha for this, I really do, because this makes Buddha an asshole. You're telling me Buddha didn't recognize A, that he's a god, B, that he's suffering, and C, maybe he should help the kid? The idea that, and anybody who's going to argue, because I remember when this was in the manga, people argued the idea that, Buddha, that's not Buddha's job. Buddha basically just gives you, wise words, and you're supposed to, basically he gives you a fortune cookie and makes the choice your own and sort of idea. And he's sort of blaming the same advice he gives Zero. It's like, no, you can't make someone happy. You can't force happiness upon them or take their unhappiness away. They need to make that decision for themselves. There's an argument that his nonchalantness towards Zero is Zero has to make the choice to follow Buddha himself. Wrong-o, big red X. No, not everybody can make that choice. Some people need this. Remember when we were talking about the helping hand idea? Right. Some people, that kid on the ground who was dying that Zero saved, didn't make a choice to get tuberculosis and die. Didn't get a choice to have pneumonia and die. Zero doing nothing, the kid's dead. Zero saved the kid because Zero, helping hand. What would Zero have done? Oh, there's light and there's shadow, and you need to make the choice to battle this disease and get up on your own 2 feet. Alright, see, I'm going to go eat some beans with these homeless people. Like, that wouldn't have worked in that situation. So once again, sometimes, Buddha's not wrong, but it's not across the board perfect advice. And Buddha, as this supposedly enlightened human being, or at this point half demigod, if he's not full god, he's enlightened nirvana. He's one step away. Once he's dead, he becomes a god and one of the most powerful gods. You're telling me he didn't notice like any of these things going on, and that maybe it's a bad idea to just let him run away? Maybe he should try to help him rather than just condone his actions and reprimand him for, oh, you tried to take away their happiness, or try to take away their unhappiness. Yeah, no, you shouldn't have done that, kid. Sucks to be you. Yeah, Buddha's a dick. Okay? This is Buddha at his worst. I like Buddha for the rest of the story. Buddha fucked up here. Buddha created the evil Zerofuku at this point, okay? Between humanity sucking and Buddha being just the worst type of person for Zero to run into at this point, and just being his nonchalant self, unhelpful piece of shit self. This was actually awful, and none of this is Zero's fault. I'm going to once again die on this hill. Nothing here is Zero's fault. Because even at the end, after all this, and he's like, yeah, you want to come walk with me, buddy? And then Zero runs away because he can't understand it. Then, once again, that's tipped him over. His selfishness his selflessness and his good nature and his innocence has finally been tapped out, and then as Brunhilde says, his love turned into hatred, which is always a fine line. Remember, if you talk to any psychologists and stuff, they'll always say the difference between love and obsession and hatred and stuff, a very fine line. Powerful emotions always have a coin. They're always flip-sided, right? So his love turned into hatred, and of course his selflessness turned into what? What's the opposite of being selfless? Is being selfish. And then he looks at Buddha and he becomes jealous of him and go, why him? I did what he did. I saved these people. I took away their happiness. Why am I not standing where people are happy to see me, who follow me? At that point, and it wasn't about that at first, I think that's what people miss, is that it's this point where he never wanted that from the beginning. He didn't need the praise. But the fact that nobody thanked him, that boiled up over the years. Remember, it's years. This was like 2 decades. Remember, the kid was this tall, and then all of a sudden was a full-grown man having 2 prostitutes on his arm. So, it's been decades of him just suffering in agonizing pain, being selfless. So, yeah, at this junction, it's all justified that he's jealous of Buddha. He has every right to be. That he's now selfish and wants and thinks that they should all be praising him, thanking him, getting down on their knees and praying to him like they pray to Buddha. 100%. He's well within his rights to demand that at this point. They should have been doing that. They should have been building a statue of him from the get-go in the town center. And then, to top it all off, it all ends up going internal, and all that misery he already obtained, all that misfortune, ate away at his original form. He becomes Zerofuku. Then he sees humans, and he's like, I'm going to wipe out all humanity, and he hates humans. And he can't even bring himself, even at his worst, lowest point, where he's just been devastated. Worst moment in his life, he goes into his evil form, and he still can't bring himself to kill an innocent child and mother. Stops himself and rips his own body apart into 7 pieces so he cannot hurt just one human. He's never hurt a human in his life. So that, once again, I know this is a big long review, and I told you guys it would be, but holy hell, was it done well in the anime? Absolutely. I'm so glad, because the voice acting, the narration by Brunhilde, the OST, All it did was bring that backstory up to animation level, and you gotta love it. You love when you get from pages to screen, and it's done right. As I said, the only mistake they made was the same mistake the manga made, where it showed where Zero took someone's misfortune and it was a bad idea. It was the only time we saw him take a misfortune, and the only time we actually saw it, it was a good idea. 100%. So I really think that the anime should have just added a couple of short scenes where it shows him taking, like, the town's at a relative okay state, and people are greedy and demand more, and Zero doesn't see the greed. He doesn't see the sloth. He doesn't see the lust and all that stuff, the gluttony. He doesn't see it, so he continues to take past where he's already saved the town. That's what we should have seen. We should have seen the point where he literally saved the town to a respectable level, and then the humans weren't satisfied enough. That's when the greed set in. That's when he wasn't taking misfortune. He was, but he was elevating them beyond, because they're slothful, they're lazy, where the 7 deadly sins sort of started to creep in. We needed to see just a short scene of that happening, and then it would have been, okay, this is where Zero made this point, this junction is where Zero screwed up. And he didn't recognize it because of his innocence, because of his selflessness, his childlike self. That would have been chef's kiss. And I think because we don't get that scene in the manga, and now not here in the anime, people are still not going to appreciate Zero as one of the best written backstories. Because we just don't see that one scene that happened. You can all, like, reading comprehension alone will tell you that's what took place. But since we don't see it, and a lot of people are very visual, so it is what it is. And since it's anime, it's all visual, right? Well, a little bit of hearing required, but whatever. But that being said, yeah, so that's only the first half of the episode. The rest of the episode is good. Yeah, this whole review is all going to be, you guys knew it. You guys knew it. It was all going to be about Zero Fuku. If you guys have been watching my channel and my Record Ragnarok content, you guys know I have a huge appreciation for two things. Two things that people don't appreciate. Round Goddamn One and Zero Fuku. I got high points up on my list of those two things that most people put on the lower half of their lists, regardless what the list is, right? So the rest of the fight continues on just like the manga. Buddha versus Zero Fuku. Buddha's he's just using his future sight, his future vision and stuff like that. He dodged before he dodges. He's cheating, yada yada yada. And of course Zero keeps pulling out the axe of misery, the axe of despair, and he just keeps, it keeps growing and growing and growing, and boom, and then it gets to this crazy version once Buddha goes, oh yeah, it's my clairvoyance and stuff like that, and he's like, that's cheating, and then so he takes all the misfortune. He's like, once again, Zero just going on his thing where it's like, I should be loved. Why am I the only one in pain? Why am I in such agony? I didn't do anything wrong. Once again, since we actually didn't see the scene, he didn't do anything wrong. I still argue Zero on screen does nothing wrong, and yet he's suffering. We know he did something wrong. We know he took it too far. We just don't know when that was. But either way, yeah, so he's like, I don't get it. I did everything the way I thought, and it didn't work out. And there was not a single person other than that poor little bird who couldn't get close enough to basically be like, thank you. I appreciate you. So he takes all that negativity and the axe of friggin' misery jumps into this giant CG crazy thing. And I didn't mind the CG. The CG looked fine to me. It was a little jarring, but not as jarring as, some things in the first season, right? So it looked okay, and then boom, he tries to flatten Buddha, and Buddha's like, yeah, 6 realms, boom, shield block. Let's keep fighting. Let's go. So, as I said, round 6 up to this point is very good. The backstory was good. The opening gambit, the uniqueness of now 2 gods fighting each other instead, and being one of the more major gods in Buddha. The first OG god we get in Zero. Zero's completely creation for Shimatsu no Valkyrie. Probably not to piss off, any people, because we already did that with a bunch of anybody following Hinduism. Pissed off a lot of people with poetic interpretation in this series, I tell you. Also, funnily enough, we have Shiva in here. I wonder how they would have handled it if Jesus was on the list, because one of the lines given by Socrates, I believe, one of the 4 sages who Buddha's a part of, Jesus Christ is one of the 4 sages as well, and he's in here. He doesn't really have a speaking line, but he's there. Socrates' line is given to Hermes instead, and we don't actually see them mention the 4 sages and stuff. Probably they did that for the Western audiences because they could get away with it, where Jesus is more of a background character, so they don't have to bring it up and get all the flack and hate by the religious zealots and stuff. They already, once again, the series gets so much backlash from the Hindu community that I'm pretty sure, you know, I'll be surprised if the Buddhists don't go crazy over Buddha's interpretation either. You know what I mean? Like, I like Buddha's interpretation, but I can see why some people be ticked off and stuff like that. It just depends on how religious you really are. How much zeal you put into your religion is going to determine how pissed off you are at a teenager's cartoon. You know what I mean? That's all it is. But I did find it funny that we kept Shiva in here. But I mean, we almost had to, though. You know, so I would have been curious if Jesus was a fighter, how the hell they were going to handle that, because they were like, nope, we're just cutting that. We are cutting that. We'll give the lines to Hermes. Let's go. So that was quite funny. But anyways, that's all I have to say about that one. This review is going to be half an hour long regardless. So yeah, clearly you guys can tell I love the episode. I love the episode because I think it's going to be the best episode of the last 5 because it did cover Zero. Hopefully it got through to a few people who didn't understand Zero at the time. Now they get it upon an anime viewing of it. Hopefully it convinced a lot of people to change their tune on him. If it didn't, maybe my rant did. I don't know. I've argued Zero's importance and how great he is stream after stream till I've been blue in the face, and it doesn't seem like I changed anybody's mind on it, to be honest with you. So anyways, that's it from me, guys. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. This, alongside with maybe the last episode, episode 15, the end of the season somehow, will be probably the longest episode, obviously, episode review. So either way, I really hope you guys got something out of my rant regarding Zero. And yeah, I just thought everything was good. The OST, the animation, everything. Once again, there's nothing wrong with these first 2 episodes of the second part of season 2. That's just so weird. Just release the whole season. Anyways, that's it for me. Like, comment, subscribe. Sayonara, everybody. See you back here soon.